Hello, and welcome to Real Talk with Lisa, where we uncover natural health tips, tricks, and hot topics related to not only nutrition and exercise, but also toxins, sleep, and stress. Hi, my name is Lisa Palecek. I'm an integrative health practitioner as well as owner of Peak Wellness with Lisa. This is episode 2 of my YouTube channel. Today we're talking about from calm to chaos, why your go-to methods stopped working in perimenopause and menopause. And today I'm so excited because I'm joined with a great friend and colleague in the natural health industry. She's a somatic practitioner as well as a naturopath, and she's been helping women all over the world. Over the last year, I was lucky enough to be a client of Kendall's because I had some major nervous system dysregulation going on, not only from a traumatic health event that I had go on, but also I was going through perimenopause, and she helped me immensely. So I'm so excited that she's here to talk with all of us today and go through that. So please welcome Kendall Hitch.
Hello.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You and I have worked together for a little while, and it's about time we did one of these, right?
It is. Yeah, no, I'm excited to chat with you. I love to being able to work with other practitioners as clients, my clients as well, because they tend to be very dedicated clients, and then they end up also integrating some of the nervous system stuff that we see a lot of times into their own work. So I love how it just comes like full circle a lot of the time.
Yeah, 100%. And so many people don't realize how the nervous system really just comes into play with all things health related, right? It's pretty amazing. So, would you like to share just a little bit with the listeners about your journey and how you got to where you're at today?
Sure. Yeah, of course. You have the shortened version, right? Because it could be a 2-hour podcast or,
Exactly,
big
right?
special here. For sure. But just like a lot of us, I think, who are in more of the integrative health, natural health field, I have kind of my own personal journey that brought me here. And I would say, from a very young age, about 4 or 5, I really started off with those physical, like digestive based issues where everyone's kind of like, oh, why, why is this happening? No one really knows. And as I grew up, things kind of started adding on to that, from hormonal based issues, anxiety, depression, as I was like going through teenage years and all of this. Um, and once I was in college, I had a couple years of my life where I had a series of traumatic events in my life. And the years following after that were kind of an aftermath, like physically, emotionally, mentally. I ended up getting diagnosed with 3 different autoimmune diseases. As far as hormonal health goes, I completely lost my period. I didn't have a period for 3
Wow.
years. Um, and I had PTSD, and I had severe anxiety, insomnia, and all of that. So that sounds like a lot, but I think for all of us who've been in that position, we know it's like these things don't usually come just one or the other. They tend to come together, which is an expression of really, the work we do here, that it's not just mental health or emotional health or physical health. It's all very much connected. And from my own journey of just from all of the doctors, from all of the, I saw a lot of psychologists as well, psychiatrists. I wasn't getting a lot better. I sometimes worse. And the messages that I was constantly given were like these diagnoses, whether it was a mental health or physical health, that's like for life. That's your label. That's it. There was no hope. There was no idea that, oh, the body can heal itself, it can change. And also the mind, right? And I really believe those two are very much interconnected. But anyways, I got to the point where I just started looking for my own, solutions of like, there has to be something else out there.
Exactly, right. You get to a point where you're just like, enough's enough. There's got to be some way to get through this, and I can't just live this way, right?
Exactly, exactly. And my first introduction really into you could say holistic healing or just, I don't love that word, but just like alternative health
Natural.
world,
Yep. Yep.
was actually mindfulness. And I just realized intuitively from what was happening to me that the trauma and the stress was very much related to physical expression in my body. So that was like my first introduction to all of this, maybe 9 or 10 years ago now. And I started getting really into it. It opened so many doors for me. So that started kind of my interest in somatics and mindfulness. And of course, it's grown since that time and it's transformed into my profession.
Mhm.
And then from there as well, the interest in natural health and this concept that if we give the body like its ingredients that it needs, it can heal itself in many circumstances, if not all.
Right.
Um, so that has been my journey. That's gotten me to where I am today, my own healing journey, working with many, many women, especially clinical practice, and now kind of creating my own practice that really combines these two of not separating hormones from anxiety, from trauma recovery, and all of this. They're very much one and the same to
Oh,
me.
so connected. I never realized it until, getting into the natural health side of things, and then even just working with you, as a client, you opened my eyes to so many different things from that perspective. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's so rewarding just to, I think, hear people feel like they understand that. And I feel like it's so liberating for us,
Right.
when we realize, like, oh, wow, nothing's like, I'm not broken. This is just, it makes sense. It makes sense why my nervous system is reacting this way. It makes sense why my hormonal system is reacting this way, especially when we start to understand as women how that all works and how it relates to our nervous system and all this good stuff. We just are like, wow, okay, this makes sense. This makes
Yes.
sense, and I can do something about it, and I can be an active participant in my healing. I don't have to just be on this crazy roller coaster of like what's coming next. Yeah.
Right, right. And that's, really going down that realm. When we talk about menopause and perimenopause, there's not a
Yeah.
lot of help for women out there right
Mhm.
now. You go to your MD, and they're not really wanting, they're like, just deal with it. I went to my MD when I was having some of my hot flashes and things like that, and they're like, "Oh, just wear less clothes." I'm like, no, 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 that's not the answer. There's something else we can do about this.
Oh
So
gosh.
so yeah, so let's really dig into some of that today. So for the next half hour or so, we'll see how long we go. But what
Yeah.
I really want to do is just really dig into more the emotional side of
Mhm.
perimenopause and menopause, and like, why are we going through this? Why are my emotions like all over the place? Like one minute I'm happy, the next minute I'm crying, the next minute I want to punch a wall. Like, why is that happening? So let's
Mhm.
dig into those questions.
Mhm.
Um, we have four. So Kendall and I have like a really great relationship where we talked a little bit and we're like, we have these four questions that our clients usually come to us with, and let's talk about those, right? So that's really what we're going
Right.
to cover today. And I'm so glad that you're able to be here and help me kind of get through this and explain to people like, we're not crazy, we're not losing our mind. And
Mhm.
when our husbands are so frustrated with us, it's like, nope, nope, there's a reason, and let's get through this, right?
Mhm. There's always a reason, right? Exactly. Like you make sense.
Yep, exactly.
Mhm.
So let's start with really the first question that I got here. And like I said, both you and I get these from both our clients and our client base, when we have women coming to us with just different issues, different emotions going on. So that first question is
Mhm.
really like, why is my anxiety getting worse in perimenopause, even though I used to be able to manage this and be able to manage stressful situations in the past?
Yeah, excellent. Well, I can jump in on that one, and kind of give us a little bit of an explanation there. So this is a really common trend that I see, especially when we talk about anxiety, where women have lived, maybe they know and they tend to be more towards the anxious side of the scale. Maybe their whole life, or maybe they really never picked up on it before, right? Um, or maybe it was just during a certain part of their cycle before. perimenopause. It was like, oh, just like that week before my period is when I do feel kind of that more acute anxiety and I can't sleep as well and this kind of get kind of snappy and stuff like that. And then a trend we often hear is now that I'm getting like, let's say I'm 42 or I'm 45 or whatever it is, it's different for every woman at what point they're going to really feel this shift.
Mhm.
But they say now this anxiety is like preventing me from really living my life as my true self. It's affecting my relationships. It's affecting not only with my partner, but maybe with my children, if I have children. Um, it's affecting just, what I do even in my daily life as things I used to like to do. I can't even do those anymore sometimes because I start to feel maybe some social anxiety, and there can be like a lot of layers to it. And
Mhm.
of course, when there's some sort of traumatic event involved along the way, of course, that can be elevated quite a bit more. Um, and really, for me, the perspective that I look at this and I understand this from is the nervous system in a biological based perspective first, which
Right.
is we have something called HRV that we use as a measure for, it's our best measure really right now for stress resilience, you could say.
Hmm.
So for those of us who are listening and aren't familiar with HRV, it's heart rate variability. And it's essentially measuring the amount, like the space between heartbeats. And the reason we want high heart rate variability is because it means that our nervous system essentially can respond to, let's say, stressful
Right.
situations, which could be physical, mental, emotional, and it can kind of go into that stress response, but then it can very quickly come back down.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So that's good high heart rate variability. And that's like a very simple explanation, but that's all you really need to know to understand, like, why do I care about heart rate variability?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and there's a lot of oh, I want to say equipment, but like your Fitbit can do that, or if you have an Aura ring, that's a really good piece of fitness equipment that you can use to be able to track that, right?
Right. Right. So it's a measure that's also starting to be more and more accessible to people, whereas in the past it wasn't so accessible to kind of
Right.
like the average person, where now it is actually, we are seeing our HRV if we have it or a ring or something like this. So we have that. And what happens in the context of perimenopause is because of now we're going to perimenopause, we have more fluctuation of estrogen and progesterone. This triggers more kind of unstable heart rate variability. It's reacting to these changes in our hormones.
Right.
And it's kind of like this cycle that works together. So what they've found is overall in perimenopause, we're going to have lower heart rate variability than we did, let's say, in our early 30s, just kind of all things considered.
Right.
So
Right. Your body just
lower,
can't handle that stress
exactly.
changes, right? Right. And I know I went through that. Like I first bought an Aura ring. Oh gosh, it was probably 5 years ago or so. And like that was a huge concern of mine. I was wearing it and I'm like, why is this so low? Like I'm
Yeah.
active, I'm working out, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then it's like, the light bulb went on. Like your body can't deal with all that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So the perimenopause puts a lot of stress on the system. So
Mhm.
we start with like a lower baseline stress resilience.
Right.
So in perimenopause, not to mention all the life things that could be happening during that time, like with potentially kids, with potentially a partner, with maybe I'm changing my work situation. I mean, all the stuff that can happen in life.
Right.
Now you also just, your body and nervous system is going to have lower stress resilience
Hmm.
baseline. So that's why women start saying, okay, now I just can't take this anxiety. Or
Hmm.
now when I used to kind of be able to like brush off a comment that I didn't like from my partner or something, now it's like devastating to me and it
Right.
creates this huge conflict. Um, because the stress resilience really goes hand in hand with also that emotional resilience and that ability to respond to emotional triggers, we could
Right.
say, instead of like react to them.
Exactly. Exactly. That's one big thing that you taught me, honestly, when we worked together was like instead of just like lashing out, it's like stop and think about what's really going on and look at the situation before you react to it, right? So those triggers are like um you're taking a moment, stepping back, take those 5 seconds and just really think about it before you react to things. So for sure, I totally get that.
The pause,
Yep.
yeah. And that pause can be really difficult if we have too many stress factors on the nervous system,
Yes.
right? Because at the end of the day, the nervous system, that's the stress resilience. It can only take so much. And you can imagine that bucket in if we don't have a very large bucket to begin with, and then we're putting this in it, putting this in, it's going to very quickly overflow.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's like, I think what happens too, Lisa, a lot of times the rhetoric nowadays is like, oh, well, you need to do stress management, like stop putting water in your bucket, basically. And my perspective is different. It's no, you need to make a bigger bucket. You
Hmm.
need to make your system more stress resilient because telling a perimenopausal woman who's working, maybe she has family, maybe she has like even a second business going, and now you're telling her, oh, stress management, like just stop being stressed, take that
Go take a bath.
you have in your
Like,
house, like just take them, throw them out in the street. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I
really?
always love the one, I love the one, go take a bath. Well, somebody that is so
Right.
stressed out and doesn't even have time because of their kids' work, maybe even elderly parents, it's like, how am I supposed to go take a 20-minute bath?
Or yeah, or go to like a hour and a half yoga class or something. And
Yes.
it's not knocking these things that can be part of a routine for
Yeah.
someone. That can totally be a beautiful practice. But the idea is that's not really what's gonna like flip the switch, you know?
Exactly. That's so true.
We have to
So
like rewire the nervous system. So for a lot of people, it becomes painfully clear in the perimenopause and menopausal years, like, okay, I actually have to take this like a little bit more seriously, this
real.
aspect of my health and wellness, um, because of, everything else that's going on in my body. And maybe they don't know about all the science behind the hormones and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but they can definitely feel it and they can
Yeah.
feel the difference.
So that's a really good point. Like another question that we get, like if I'm having a lot of anxiety, how do I tell the difference between is it anxiety or is it my hormones being off? How do I decipher that?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
My simple answer is yes. To that question. And that's really because I don't think you can entirely separate them, right? So I think the issue too is kind of going back to what we started to talk about in the beginning is like we've been told that something like anxiety or depression is completely separate from like your female hormones or
Right.
even your digestive system, right? And things like this. And now, it's being talked about a lot, the gut mind connection, the gut brain connection, which is totally true. But we also, I think there's a discussion missing about the female hormone
Hormones.
connection. Um, and just a side note, this brings us back to the point that the majority of medical research, whether it be about the nervous system or whatever, is done on men.
I know, isn't that crazy?
So, like, females were left out of research up until 1993 because of their hormonal cycles.
Right.
So, we really have to take that seriously and understand that we almost have to, like, take a new look and perspective about every kind of new wellness trend and new, what's hot today that comes out. It's almost always first based on the research from on men.
Fine.
And then
Yeah.
there has to be this second, like, go around and be like, wait a second, you know?
It's almost like the female system was like too complicated. So like, we're just going to do this on men and, we'll figure this out later, maybe.
Exactly. And
So,
that totally transfers over to like nervous system, healing from trauma, healing from stress and anxiety as well. Because even these practices, Lisa, today that are being kind of like flashed across the internet of, okay, now I'm gonna go do my cold plunge, or like really, really intense exercise or breathwork sessions for the nervous system is not, I
no,
wouldn't recommend for perimenopausal or menopausal women. And for women, even in their fertile years, like cycling, only in a very specific part of their cycle, maybe, right?
right.
Maybe.
Right.
And it's being touted as like, this is the golden ticket for everyone. Like, you just got to
No.
get yourself in an ice bath every day. And
No.
that, and it could actually do more harm than good, especially
Exactly.
imagine a perimenopausal woman who their HRV is already tanked. And that ice bath, what it's doing is a huge stress stimulus on the nervous system.
Right. You're shocking it even worse, right?
Exactly. And that's great if you have really high resilience, because it's like that training aspect. But if the majority are not going to be in that
No.
category, and it's just really not what most women need
Right.
in,
Right.
in that stage of their life. So it's like I always give the kind of example of, let's say you haven't worked out in 20 years and you go to the gym and this guy's like, "Oh, I know what you should do. You should start with these 100-pound dumbbells and start doing, whatever. And then you're gonna go run a 10K after that."
Right.
And like you would injure yourself. You
Yeah.
would actually hurt yourself. And that's a similar thing to what happens with some of these kind of like golden ticket, do everyone should just like do ice baths, do this really intense whatever practice for the nervous system. A similar thing happens.
Right.
People,
Right.
why
It's
do I
those
feel
latest,
worse?
yeah, it's those latest TikTok trends, right? Everybody's like, oh, I should try that. Well, you really need to think twice about some of those things because they could really, like you said, cause more harm than good. For
Yeah,
sure.
especially for women, especially for
Yeah.
women. And it's like we need to know where we're at in not only in our cycle, but also where are we at in terms and season of life. If we're
Yeah.
in
100%.
perimenopause, menopause, postpartum,
Right.
right? All of these are very vulnerable hormonal positions to be in.
Yeah, I actually have a client right now that is peri, and I'm trying to talk her down from exercising so much. I'm like, I'm trying to explain to her that the stress that you're putting on, I understand you want to work out, and that's a stress reliever for you, but you're also putting added stress on with some of the, you know, 5K runs and those kind of things that you're doing. So really just working with your health practitioner and regulating those things. Not saying you can't ever do those again, but let's get things
Exactly.
back in balance first, right?
Exactly. And just seeing, yeah, quantity, timing of when we're doing these things, maybe when we're trying to hold off. It's never about like a black or white, it's good or it's bad. It's more about the nuance of for you right now, what does your body need? What does your nervous system need? Like, of course, this whole panorama is going to change if the person, let's say they're recovering from trauma, they have PTSD. That's going to add like a whole other layer
Oh, yeah,
to the
100%.
situation. So we really do need to understand that everyone's different. We should respect that. And then specifically in the context of women, we require even more in-depth and personalized nuance kind of care and wellness plans
Yeah,
because our hormones are different. They're
right, right. Yeah,
Mhm.
and there's, when we talk about a hormone balance, we can balance those hormones out, right? A lot of times, your estrogen's going to go high, your progesterone, testosterone are going to drop. I actually just ran my a hormone test on myself just recently, and my estrogen was good, but my testosterone and progesterone tanked.
Yeah,
They're down low, and I'm like, holy moly, that kind of explains some of the things that are going on. But like from
yeah.
um, a physical side, I get it. But let's talk a little bit about how, can regulating your nervous system actually help with some of those, those emotional symptoms? If we
Yeah.
do some of that breath work and try and get ourselves grounded, will that help?
Yeah, 100%. So emotions too. I think it's again one of these things that we've been taught that like, oh, emotions kind of live up here. They're in our mind, or there's something that are kind of imaginary almost. When we think about the concepts of emotions that we've been taught or just seen in the way they're presented in society. And the truth is, we've researched emotions, their biochemical reactions and responses in the body. It's really interesting that they've done even like these body scans. I don't know if you've ever seen those images where when people they in one of the studies it was interesting. They asked, I don't know how many people are in the sample size, but it was thousands of people. They were kind of experiencing a certain emotion and they had to kind of color in the body
Oh,
where they felt like heat and
mm-hmm.
where they felt or if they felt cold and things like this. So then they like compared all the images and did averages and they were mostly very similar.
Oh,
So they
interesting.
made these like body cutouts of, yeah, and you probably can Google it and it will come up, but it's like, oh, anger. You could see like all of the red up here, and you can feel that when there's anger. There's like tension here, there's heat here, right? Or
Right.
there was people who are more depressed and there was a lot of blue and cold, right? And numbness, and they actually matched that up too to measuring like circulation in the body and
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that. So it was really interesting. But point being, just wanting to start out there with this idea that emotions are not just like this random thing we imagine in our head. They're actually biochemical reactions, right?
Mhm.
So we have to first understand that. And because they are biochemical reactions, when we start to understand that, they're going to interact with our hormones
Right.
very, 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 very directly. And the most direct way is through our stress hormones, right? Cortisol, adrenaline, and how those guys are going to have a direct impact then on the whole hormonal cascade of the on the body, whether it be thyroid hormones, insulin, if we're talking about blood sugar regulation, it's a big
Right.
one I see all the time, and female hormones, so our progesterone or estrogen, and then testosterone comes into play as well. So basically, I always present this image to my clients that there is like a hormonal hierarchy in our body, and it's especially intense as women, that those upper tier hormones of progesterone, estrogen, testosterone are going to look towards signals from the bottom tier hormones to see,
Right.
what they should be doing, if we should be making more or less.
Right.
So those bottom two levels are our stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, and also insulin, which is where the blood sugar stuff comes into play.
Mhm.
Um, so the point being is if we have super dysregulated stress hormones from this emotional reactivity,
Right.
we're no longer able to kind of respond to and process, those guys get out of whack. Very likely, insulin and blood sugar starts to come out of whack as well. And then the thyroid and female hormones, of course, are going to be out of whack because they're responding to what's going on with our stress hormones. Are we safe or not? And if
That's
we're not
key.
safe, right, I don't care. We're not going to produce a lot of progesterone because
Right.
why would a woman, evolutionarily, why would we have her reproduce if
If
she's not
she's
stressed?
100%. I think that's key. That is a key point right there that I think a lot of women need to understand. Like, why am I spotting not having regular periods? What's going on? And you don't realize you're under the stress that you really are under because it's society. We just take it for granted that this stress is good or not good, but it's natural, right? Everybody has it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really what's causing a lot of the dysregulation out there and, the some of the physical symptoms, but also the emotional and nervous system symptoms, right?
100%. Yeah, they all go hand in hand. So it's like this cycle too.
Hmm.
Because we know when our hormones are more out of whack, that's also that dysregulating factor for our nervous system. So it's like, in my perspective, we can't just isolate them,
Right.
right? We can't just say, oh, well, like we're just gonna help you with your quote unquote hormones. But I don't know, with your emotional stuff and your stress stuff, like you just gotta figure that out somehow.
You can't do that.
How is that gonna work?
No,
It's not
no,
gonna work. It's not
no,
gonna
because
work, especially
you
not long.
can, yeah, you can throw herbs or whatever you want,
Yeah,
you know, bioavailable, HRT or whatever,
whatever
and you can,
supplements,
yeah,
yeah,
whatever's out there right now, right? You can
right.
throw that at it, but if you're not taking care of the nervous system and regulating that, it's always, you can probably get it there, but it's gonna be doing this all the time, right? Up and down and
Yeah, a lot of up and
regulate
down,
that.
which again is that stress on the system.
Right,
That stress on the
exactly.
system. So it is about coming from a base of regulation. And I think another point that I like to emphasize too, Lisa, with this is when you understand how to regulate your nervous system and you go through kind of what I call rewiring processes, if we have been through trauma, traumatic stress, chronic stress, um, it makes the other stuff so much easier.
It does.
Now we're not battling with ourselves, oh, to get ourselves to the gym and self-sabotaging. And now we're not, taking down randomly 20 Oreos at night because you're not saying never. I'm not saying we all have our little
Oh
moments and
yeah,
stuff
for
like
sure.
that. But for me personally, I'm speaking from my personal experience, from my client's experience, it makes it so much easier because now you're coming to your body from this place of like understanding of why it does what it does, why it has these cravings, why it might even have these like little addictive patterns or whatever it is, these self-sabotage patterns. You
Right.
understand that and you know how to work with it. So it's like, oh, I know I probably shouldn't be eating 5 cookies right now, right? So, oh, I'm going to compassionately now be able to respond to that
Hmm.
me because I do want a cookie. I eat one, but I'm able to actually now stop myself, not from this place of like, oh, I hate my body, but rather,
Right.
oh, I understand what's going on.
Yes.
I'm going to
Yes.
make a compassionate, educated choice that for me, I could never do that until I really learned the nervous system piece.
Right. Right. And that's huge. And a lot of the stuff that you work on with women really is around that. Like you and I worked on that quite a while, with the things that I went through, and I kept having reoccurring health things because I was so worried something was
Mm.
going to happen, right? Remember that? And it's like
That's very common too. You'd be surprised about how common and that is, and even in our profession, you'd be surprised because I see so many people who, we get so much information, which is lovely, but sometimes it just starts also becoming fear-based,
Yes.
fear-based, and it's very anxiety provoking. And even women who are super well educated on nutrition and exercise and all this good stuff, they're constantly second guessing themselves, or they're constantly thinking like it's not enough, or something's wrong with me, or, I have this medical problem and now this is going to happen. And I think part of that is because of this rhetoric that we're also being fed of it's never enough. You need this new product, and this can go wrong, and this can go wrong, and this can go wrong, and this can go wrong.
Right.
If we don't know how to regulate in that, it's going to send us into this constant cycle of anxiety.
Yeah, that's so true. It's almost too much. It's just too much for your brain to even handle sometimes, right?
It is. Yeah, we weren't really made to process that
No,
information like
no.
that. So in our face, 24/7, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, that kind of talked a little bit about, regulating the nervous system. Do you have any quick a quick tip that you could maybe share with the group on, we always talk about grounding and meditation, but if there's something that
Yeah.
somebody just needed to like be like, I just need to like come to a place of calm because, work really irritated the crap out of me today or whatever. Is there something you could just share really quick with the listeners?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I'll just give a quick disclaimer that nervous system regulation, just like any nutrition or supplement plan, has to be personalized to you. Because there are even instances where something like meditation is not the best first step for someone. When they're traumatized or they're really high anxiety, it's not going to feel safe for their body to meditate. So also just this message that if you've tried to pull out the Calm app and you tried to meditate and that hasn't worked for you, it makes sense. Okay, your
Right.
nervous system doesn't feel safe in silence and stillness right now, and it's probably trying to protect you by not allowing you to do
Right.
that.
And
Okay.
that's where I was when I came to you. I
Yeah.
remember those days.
It's really common. And I think it's hard because that's kind of what's being preached to us is like, well, just get the Calm app and like you're good, and I'm not bagging on the Calm app or anything like that. Like meditation is beautiful. I meditate, but yeah, there was a long time in my life where I really couldn't. I physically couldn't because my nervous system was like, it's not safe to close your eyes. It's
Yeah.
not safe to be still. Are you crazy? Look around, what's going around, get going, let's go.
Mhm.
So just that in general, of letting people know that one practice isn't for everyone. But I do think one thing that can be safe and easy for everyone to try is just if you're feeling like it's too much, you're overwhelmed, you're disconnected, really coming back to your breath and your body. So it could be as simple as tuning in to the rhythm of your breath, putting one hand on the heart or maybe on the belly button, right? Those are two good areas where it's really powerful to tune into. And I really appreciate and like the physical contact for people,
Yes.
because if we're more numb and we're disassociated, it brings us back into our body. If we're anxious and we're more in the head, it brings us back down. So maybe the heart, the belly button, maybe both. Okay, and just feel the warmth of your body. Tune into what's going on in your body, sensation wise, not so much the story.
Right.
And tune back into your breath if you can, if that feels safe. Okay, so
Yeah.
that could just be like a very mini, like you mentioned, a minuscule kind of tip
Yes.
practice where you could just practice. I always say, I work with a lot of women who are dealing with anxiety and recovering from traumatic stress. That's kind of the main group of people I work with. So when we feel a lot of anxiety and a lot of excitement and elevation in the nervous system, the idea is really to bring it down,
Into a calm. Yes.
back to your body, come
Yes.
back to your body, come back to the present. This phrase, when you're losing your mind, come back to your body.
Yes. Yep.
Oh,
Just that just for me, it's always like just stop and take a few breaths. Take 3 deep breaths and just stop and let the mind stop. And that for me helps immensely, right? So
yeah, let the mind, and if it can't stop, let it focus in on something in the body.
one
Let
thing.
it focus in on the breath, let it focus in on the rise and fall of the chest or the belly. It allows it to rest. But
Mhm.
yeah, definitely try that and see how it feels in your body. But then also know that, yeah, don't get discouraged. If you pull out an app and you download a meditation or whatever it is, or you go to like some sort of yoga class and it's not sitting right for you, you don't feel at ease, you don't feel safe. That's not uncommon. It's
Right.
actually
Right.
really common, and it does take working from more of that nervous system trauma informed level to kind of go through the
Get
phases.
to that. Yes, 100%. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I think that we have one more question that I'd really like to just go over with you, and I think it hits home for both you and I in our practice. Like,
Yeah.
I know personally, I went to my MD probably about a year ago, and I said, "Hey, I know this is going on. Is there a test that I can run to just see where I'm
Mm.
at in it, or what I can do?" And the flat out answer I got was no. Basically, when your period stops after a year, you're done, right? You're over menopause.
And
And
you're
it's
in
like,
menopause, yeah.
yeah, and it's like, okay, well, that doesn't help me any. So what can we do? I know what I offer to my clients, but if you want to go ahead and share that, and then I can tell a little bit up from my end as well.
Yeah, so I think there's different levels to it too, Lisa. I know every practitioner has a different perspective, but I think first just understanding like what perimenopause actually is. I think a lot of women have like this misunderstanding of that in general. They think perimenopause like isn't going to happen until I'm at least 50 or something like that. And that's simply not true, right? These hormonal fluctuations can start to happen way earlier. And there's also what I see is a misconception a lot that it's like a moment or it's just like a few months in time. And it's really a longer process. And understanding that over these years leading up to menopause, your body's essentially going through a transition, just like it did when you were a girl
Yep,
about to get ready to go into puberty.
yep,
That was a several year process. It wasn't like a couple months and then you're done, right? And eventually you got your first period, but that wasn't the only moment that mattered.
exactly.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now it's a similar thing, and it's just like another stage of hormonal transition where estrogen and progesterone are starting to fluctuate and they're starting to find a new place because you're essentially coming out of those reproductive years.
Right.
And that's what it is. So that's the main thing that's going to happen. And eventually, when we get to menopause, they're going to kind of flatline out at a lower level.
Mhm.
And just having women understand that first, right, to me is always really important of where are we on this journey. And then when we want to test, yeah, it's not that we can't test. We just also need to keep that in mind that, yeah, during perimenopause, it is going to be a fluctuation
Mhm.
of these numbers. But when we test as practitioners, we can help someone understand kind of where in closer in that journey they might be, or some people don't even know and they're actually already in menopause.
That's so true. So
And
true.
that happens sometimes. It's like, okay, just gently saying like, I think actually now, we are in menopause.
Already there, right?
Um, so there's different tests. There's salivary-based tests for hormones that tend to be more accurate than blood-based tests, which we can offer from
Mhm.
an integrative natural health perspective. There's something called a Dutch test as well, which can be urine-based or salivary-based, and it has some other markers on there as well in terms of how hormones are metabolized in our body. So that can be interesting. So usually with my clients, depending on what we're focusing on and working on, I ask you, is that something they want to invest in or not? And there's some people who don't want to, and I think that's okay, right? You
Mhm.
can also go about it.
Just looking at symptoms sometimes too.
Yeah,
Right.
symptoms and kind of monitoring how you're feeling and focusing on the habits we need to develop and what we need to work on and just see how it goes. Or if people want to test, yeah, I often use the Dutch test.
Mhm.
Um, but I also, think that just having any sort of, whether it's just a salivary test or whatever it is good information that we can use. So of
Right.
course, my clients come to me with that. Of course, I use that even if they have blood work, I take a look at that and I take it into consideration. But yeah, I often will use a Dutch test with people if that's what they want to do.
And the nice thing with the tests that both you and I use, they're at home. So
Right.
we can order the test, we can send it to you, you can do it at home. It's a simple test. You send it back through either UPS or probably FedEx or the US Postal Service, depending on
Yeah.
what test you do. And they're super simple. You don't
Yeah.
have to go in and get your blood drawn. Again, if you do that with your
Yeah. That's
MD,
fine.
definitely willing to look at that. But
Yeah.
I think we get a better range of what's going on with those at-home functional labs that we use. So,
Yeah, and it can feel just nicer to people to have that process, I think, kind of happen
yeah,
outside sometimes the medical perspective because it doesn't have to feel so kind of intense and black and white, right?
right,
There's room to, at least in the way I look at tests, and I think the way you do too, Lisa, is that we're not just looking at the test. We're there with the person and we deeply know the person. We know what's going on with them, and we can help them put this all into context of what's happening in their life. It's not
right.
just a list of numbers.
Exactly. You're looking at the whole thing. You're looking at what's
Yeah,
affecting their life, what they have going on, all the things, right? It's not just a test. So that's
exactly.
super key. We definitely do that. So
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
yeah, so these have been all great questions. I know we went a little bit over, but I think you gave some amazing information to just help people get through this and really understand where those weird and crazy emotions that we're having are coming from. If you're
Yeah.
interested in learning more about the hormone tests that either Kendall or I can offer, they will be within the show notes at the bottom of the episode, so you can take a look at that. You can jump over to our websites. You can always reach out to us too, because
Yeah.
we're always willing to work with people and help them out in those situations. Um,
Yeah.
I do have, I know we talked a little bit about stress management, and just being able to have some of those tips and tricks. So I do have a freebie on my website. So I will have a link for that. But Kendall, do you have anything like that that we can share with the listeners?
Yeah, I am updating and changing things from time to time. Right now, I have some breath work 5-day kind of different little practices you can try to sign up for if that's something you're interested in. And then also, if it is something where you think you're looking for a deeper perspective, I offer free 20-minute consultations. So if that's something that someone wants as well to get a little bit of a more personalized look, we can do that too.
That sounds awesome. And I back Kendall 110%. She is an amazing person, amazing practitioner, and she will help you get through the things. I can promise you that. So, Kendall, I
Oh,
just want to thank you today for joining me. It's been an amazing discussion and a topic that I don't think is covered enough out in public at all. So, thank you so much.
yeah, not at all. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for the opportunity. It was really great to chat with you. I always love chatting with you, and better if it's about this stuff, right? Because it's so
Exactly.
important. So,
Exactly. Exactly. Well, until next time, I wish you well, and I wish all our listeners well and peak health and harmony. So thank you for joining.
Exactly. Have a great one. Nice to see everyone here.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right.